The moment Amara Jackson's knees buckled in that courtroom, every camera in America turned toward her. But only one person in the room knew the real reason she fell. Quick question before we dive in. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love seeing where this story reaches. So let me take you back to where this all started. Amara was 22 years old, a third-year pre-law student at a state university nobody had ever heard of, working 3 jobs just to keep herself enrolled. She wasn't supposed to be in that courtroom that day. She wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the kind of wealth and power that filled those wooden benches. But life has a way of dragging you exactly where you need to be, even when it feels like the last place you belong. It was a Tuesday morning in late September when Amara got the email. She was sitting in the back of a crowded bus, headphones in, reviewing case notes on her cracked phone screen. The subject line read, "Emergency hearing, Wallace Estate versus multiple parties." Her professor had forwarded it to a handful of students with a single line of instruction. Attend if possible, observe, learn. Amara almost deleted it. She had a shift at the campus library in 2 hours, then another at the diner until midnight. But something about the case name stuck with her. Wallace. She'd heard that name before. Everyone had. Marcus Wallace. Tech billionaire, philanthropist. The kind of man whose face appeared on magazine covers and TED Talk stages. She didn't know much about the legal battle, except that it involved his estate, his late wife's foundation, and accusations flying in every direction. She went anyway, skipped her library shift, borrowed a blazer from her roommate that didn't quite fit, took 2 buses and walked 15 blocks to the courthouse downtown, a place that felt more like a cathedral than a building, all marble and echoes, and the weight of decisions that changed lives. The courtroom was packed. Lawyers in $1,000 suits, journalists with notebooks, family members dressed in black, their faces tight with grief or greed, sometimes both. Amara found a seat in the last row, tucked herself into a corner, tried to make herself invisible. She pulled out her notebook, ready to take notes like the diligent student she was. But the moment the judge entered and the room fell silent, she realized this wasn't going to be a learning experience. This was going to be a war. The case was a mess. Marcus Wallace's wife, Diane, had died 8 months earlier in a car accident. She had left behind a foundation dedicated to education access for underserved communities, funded with $50 million of her own money. But now Diane's siblings were contesting the foundation's structure, claiming Marcus had manipulated their sister, that the money should go to them instead, that the foundation was a vanity project with no real impact. Their lawyer was a shark in a gray suit, the kind of man who smiled when he went for the throat. Amara watched as he tore into the foundation's financials, questioning every grant, every scholarship, every dollar spent. And then he said something that made her stomach turn. "Let's be honest, Your Honor," the lawyer said, his voice smooth as poison. "This foundation isn't about helping anyone. It's about optics. It's about making wealthy people feel good while doing nothing that actually changes lives. Show me one student, just one, whose life was genuinely transformed by this so-called charity." The room went silent. The judge looked toward Marcus Wallace's legal team, waiting for a response. And that's when Amara felt it. A pull, a burning in her chest that had nothing to do with logic or reason. She thought about every scholarship application she'd submitted and been denied. Every form letter that said, "We regret to inform you." Every night she'd gone to bed exhausted, wondering if she'd ever make it, if any of this was worth it. And then she thought about the one scholarship she had received, the only reason she was still in school, the only reason she hadn't dropped out last semester when her mother got sick and the medical bills started piling up. The Diane Wallace Foundation Scholarship for Future Legal Advocates. $5,000, renewable for 3 years. It wasn't a fortune, but it was everything. Before she could stop herself, Amara stood up. The movement caught everyone's attention. Heads turned, the judge frowned, a bailiff took a step forward, and Amara, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe, heard her own voice cut through the silence. "I'm that student." Every eye in the courtroom locked onto her. The shark lawyer narrowed his gaze. Marcus Wallace, sitting at the defense table in a dark suit, turned to look at her fully for the first time. "Excuse me?" said the judge, her tone somewhere between annoyed and curious. Amara's hands were shaking. She gripped the back of the bench in front of her to steady herself. I'm a Wallace Foundation scholar. That foundation, what she built, it's the reason I'm still in school. It's the reason I didn't have to choose between paying for my mother's medication and staying enrolled. It's the reason I'm standing here right now. The shark lawyer recovered quickly, standing with a practiced smile. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. This young woman is not a party to this case. She has no standing. I have a voice, Amara said louder than she intended. And if you want proof that the foundation changes lives, then let me tell you exactly how it changed mine. And that's when everything shifted. Because Marcus Wallace stood up too, and he said 4 words that would alter the course of everything. Let her speak, Your Honor. The judge didn't allow it, of course. This wasn't some movie where passion wins the day and courtroom rules bend because someone's story is compelling. The judge told Amara to sit down, told both legal teams to save their theatrics, and called a 15-minute recess. But the damage was done. Or maybe the spark was lit. Depends on how you look at it. Amara barely made it out of the courtroom before her legs gave out. Not fully. She caught herself on the hallway wall, breathing hard, her vision swimming. She'd never done anything like that in her life. Never spoken up in a room full of people who mattered. Never put herself in the center of anything. She was the kind of person who survived by staying small, by working twice as hard and taking up half the space. But now everyone had seen her, and worse, everyone knew who she was. She was trying to pull herself together, trying to stop her hands from shaking, when she heard footsteps behind her. Expensive shoes on marble. She didn't turn around. That was brave, a man's voice said. Deep, calm, the kind of voice used to be listened to. Amara closed her eyes. That was stupid. Maybe both. She turned. Marcus Wallace stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. Up close, he looked older than his photos, more tired. There were lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and burdens carried quietly. He didn't look like a billionaire in that moment. He looked like a man trying to hold something together that kept threatening to fall apart. I didn't have to do that, Amara said, her voice still unsteady. Stand up for me. Tell the judge to let me speak. I didn't do it for you, Marcus said. I did it because you were right, and because my wife would have done the same thing. Something about the way he said my wife hit different. Not possessive, not past tense in the cold, grammatical way. Like she was still present, still part of every decision he made. Amara swallowed hard. I didn't know her. I only got the scholarship letter. I wrote a thank you note, but I don't even know if anyone read it. She read every single one, Marcus said quietly. Every letter, every application. She used to stay up late in her office reading them, and sometimes she'd come to bed crying because she couldn't fund them all. She wanted to help everyone. That was the problem. Or maybe that was the gift. There was silence between them, the kind that feels heavy but not uncomfortable. Like 2 people standing in the same storm, recognizing each other. Why are they doing this? Amara asked. Her family. Why are they trying to destroy what she built? Marcus's jaw tightened. Because people see money and they stop seeing anything else. Diane's siblings think they're entitled to her wealth. They think the foundation is wasteful because it doesn't benefit them directly. They don't see students like you. They see numbers on a balance sheet. That's not what I see, Amara said. I see a woman who believed in people like me when nobody else did. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Do you have to be somewhere right now? Yeah, work. I have 2 shifts today. Cancel them. Amara blinked. I can't I'll pay you for the shifts. Triple. I need your help, and I think you need to see something. Every reasonable instinct in Amara's body screamed at her to say no. You don't follow billionaires you just met into unknown situations. You don't skip work for people who could buy and sell your entire life with pocket change. You don't get involved in legal battles that have nothing to do with you. But there was something in his eyes, a desperation that felt real, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to do something that mattered. Okay, show me. They didn't go far, just 3 blocks to a building Amara had walked past 100 times without noticing. It looked like any other downtown office space from the outside, but inside, it was different. Open, bright, filled with the sound of voices and laughter and the hum of purpose. A sign on the wall read, Diane Wallace Foundation, Community Center, and Scholarship Hub. Marcus led her through the main floor, past rooms where students sat at computers working on applications, past a tutoring center where kids were getting help with math homework, past a small library filled with law books and test prep materials. Every face they passed was brown or black. Every student looked like they carried the weight of the world and the hope of breaking through it at the same time. She wanted this to be more than just money, Marcus said as we walked. She wanted a space, a community, proof that investing in people isn't charity, it's justice. They stopped in front of a wall covered in photos, hundreds of them. Students in graduation gowns, students holding acceptance letters, students smiling, crying, celebrating. And in the center, a portrait of Diane Wallace herself. A Black woman with kind eyes and a smile that looked like it could hold the world. Amara's breath caught. She hadn't known, hadn't realized. Diane was a Wallace Foundation scholar too, Marcus said softly. 30 years ago, when the foundation was run by my grandmother. That's how we met. She was the first person in her family to go to college, first to graduate, first to build something that would outlive her, and now her own siblings are trying to tear it down because they think they deserve her money more than the students she spent her life trying to save. Amara felt tears burning her eyes. They can't win. You can't let them win. I'm not the one who can stop them, Marcus said, turning to face her. The judge wants proof of impact, real stories, real data. She's giving us 2 weeks to present a case that shows why this foundation matters. My lawyers are good, but they're arguing numbers and tax codes. What we need is something they can't spin or dismiss. What do you need from me? Marcus's eyes held hers. Tell your story, not just in 30 seconds in a courtroom, the whole thing. Where you came from, what you've survived, what the scholarship meant. And help me find more students like you, people who can stand up and show the judge, show everyone that this isn't about money, it's about lives. Amara felt the weight of it settling on her shoulders. This wasn't just about attending a hearing anymore. This was about stepping into the center of something that could change everything or blow up in her face. If I do this, if I put myself out there like that, there's no going back, is there? No, Marcus said honestly. There's not. You'll be visible, exposed. People will question you, doubt you, maybe even attack you. But you'll also be doing exactly what Diane believed education should do, giving you a voice that can't be ignored. Amara thought about her mother, working 2 jobs her entire life just to keep them housed. Thought about every teacher who'd told her she was smart, but probably not college material. Thought about every time she'd felt invisible, disposable, like her life didn't matter enough to fight for. And then she thought about that scholarship letter, the way it had felt like someone, somewhere, finally saw her. Okay, she said, I'm in. Marcus smiled for the first time since she'd met him. It was tired, but real. Thank you. They spent the next 6 hours in a small office, Amara telling her story while Marcus and 2 foundation staff members took notes, asked questions, recorded audio. She talked about growing up in a neighborhood where college felt like a fantasy, about her mother's illness, about working overnight shifts and falling asleep in library study rooms. She talked about the moment she got the scholarship notification and how she had cried for 20 minutes straight because she finally believed she might actually make it. By the time they finished, it was dark outside. Amara was exhausted, emotionally wrung out, but also strangely lighter, like she'd put down something heavy she'd been carrying alone for too long. I'll have my assistant send you the compensation for your shifts, Marcus said as they walked toward the exit. And I'll be in touch about next steps. We have 13 days before the hearing. Amara nodded, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why does this matter so much to you? I mean, I understand she was your wife, but you're a billionaire. You could fund scholarships on your own. You could start 100 foundations. Why fight this hard for this one? Marcus was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. Because this was hers. her vision, her heart. And because the world tried to tell her she didn't matter, that girls like her didn't become women who changed things. And she proved them wrong. If I let her siblings destroy that legacy, then all those years she fought to be seen, to be heard, to matter, they mean nothing. And I can't let that happen. I won't. Amara felt something shift in her chest. Understanding, respect, maybe even the beginning of something like hope. Then we won't let it happen, she said. She didn't know yet what that promise would cost her, but she was about to find out. The attacks started 48 hours later. Amara didn't realize at first that she had become a target. She was sitting in her introduction to constitutional law class, half listening to a lecture about due process, when her phone started buzzing. Once, twice, then continuously, like a swarm of angry bees trapped in her backpack. She ignored it until the professor shot her a look, and she quickly silenced it. During the break, she checked her messages. 37 notifications, all from social media platforms she barely used. Her stomach dropped as she started reading. Someone had identified her from the courtroom, posted her name online, and now the internet had opinions.
This girl is a plant, probably paid by Wallace's legal team. Another diversity hire trying to make rich people look good. She's lying. That scholarship probably went to someone who actually deserved it. Why is some random student speaking on a case worth millions? Follow the money. Amara felt her hands go numb. She'd never been perceived like this before. Never had strangers dissecting her life, her motives, her worth. The comments kept coming, each one sharper than the last. Someone had found her Instagram, started posting screenshots of her photos with captions mocking everything from her clothes to her hair to the fact that she posted about working multiple jobs. If she's so poor, how does she afford a smartphone? This is what happens when you give handouts to people who don't appreciate them. She closed the app, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She made it through the rest of the class on autopilot, then walked straight past the bus stop and kept walking until she found herself sitting on a bench in a small park, staring at nothing. Her phone rang. Marcus Wallace. "Did you see it?" she asked before he could say anything. "Yes." His voice was tight, angry. "I'm sorry. My team should have anticipated this, should have protected you better." "How do you protect someone from the internet deciding they're a liar?" "You don't," Marcus said quietly. "You just make sure they're not facing it alone." "Where are you?" She told him. 20 minutes later, a black car pulled up and Marcus stepped out. Not a driver, him. He sat down on the bench beside her, and for a minute, neither of them spoke. "I can back out," Amara finally said. "I can release a statement saying I spoke out of turn, that I'm not involved, that..." "Is that what you want?" "No." The word came out fierce, surprising even her. "But I don't know if I'm strong enough for this." Marcus turned to look at her. "You stood up in a courtroom full of people who wanted you silent, and you spoke anyway. You're stronger than you think. That was one moment. This is everyone everywhere deciding who I am before I even get a chance to define it myself." "I know," Marcus said quietly. "Diane went through the same thing when we got married. People said she was a gold digger, that she had manipulated me, that she didn't belong in our world. They tried to make her small, and she refused. She built something so undeniable that even her critics had to acknowledge it mattered. You can do the same thing." Amara wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "How?" "By not being alone. We have 12 days until the hearing. I want you to meet the other scholars. Let them tell their stories. Build something together that's bigger than any single attack." That night, Amara lay in her narrow dorm bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. But when she woke up the next morning to an email from Marcus with a list of 20 Wallace Foundation scholars who wanted to meet her, something inside her steadied. They gathered at the community center that Saturday. 20 students, ranging from freshmen to grad students, all of them shaped by the same foundation, all of them carrying stories that mattered. There was Darius, a computer science major whose scholarship kept him out of gang recruitment, Keisha, a nursing student who was the first in her family to finish high school, let alone pursue higher education, James, a law student, like Amara, who had aged out of foster care and used his scholarship to avoid homelessness. They spent the day sharing stories, building a presentation, creating something undeniable, a collective narrative that showed the foundation wasn't abstract. It was flesh and blood and futures that would have been erased without it. By the end of the day, Amara felt something she hadn't felt in weeks: certainty. This mattered. These people mattered. And if the world wanted to tear her down for saying so, then she'd just have to stand firmer. But the universe wasn't done testing her yet. 4 days before the hearing, Amara's mother called. Her voice was weak, strained. "Baby, I need you to come home." Amara's heart stopped. "What happened?" "I'm at the hospital. They say it's not serious, but..." Amara didn't hear the rest. She was already grabbing her keys, already running. The hospital was a 2-hour bus ride from campus. She made it in 90 minutes, her mind racing through every worst-case scenario. When she finally found her mother's room, she almost collapsed from relief. Her mom was sitting up in bed, looking tired but alive, an IV in her arm and a doctor writing notes on a chart. "What happened?" Amara asked, gripping her mother's hand. "Just a complication with the medication," her mom said softly. "They're adjusting the dosage. I'll be fine, baby. You didn't have to come all this way."
Yes, I did. The doctor left them alone, and Amara sat on the edge of the bed, her mother's hand in hers, feeling the weight of everything crashing down at once. The hearing, the foundation, the attacks, her mother's illness, the constant, relentless pressure of trying to hold everything together with hands that never stopped shaking. "I don't know if I can do this," Amara whispered. Her mother squeezed her hand. "Do what?" "Any of it. All of it. I'm supposed to testify at this hearing in 4 days, and people are calling me a liar online, and you're in the hospital, and I haven't slept more than 4 hours in a week, and I just..." Her voice broke. "I feel like I'm drowning." Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know what your grandmother used to tell me?" Amara shook her head. She said, "Baby girl, the world's gonna try to make you believe you're small, that you don't matter, that you should stay quiet and grateful for whatever crumbs fall from the table. But you are not small. You are not a crumb. And the moment you realize that, the moment you stand up and take the space you deserve, that's when you become dangerous. That's when you become free." Tears streamed down Amara's face. "I'm scared." "Good," her mother said. "That means it matters. That means you're doing something real." Amara stayed with her mother until visiting hours ended, then took the last bus back to campus. She was exhausted, emotionally spent, but something had shifted. She wasn't drowning anymore. She was deciding to swim. When she got back to her dorm, there was a package waiting. Inside was a handwritten note from Marcus. Diane used to say, "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding your purpose matters more than your fear. Thank you for being courageous. See you in court." Beneath the note was a photo. Diane Wallace, younger, standing in a courtroom herself, testifying about something Amara couldn't identify. But the look on Diane's face, determined, unshakable, fully alive, said everything. Amara pinned the photo to her wall. 3 days until the hearing. 3 days to decide if she was really ready to become dangerous, to become free. She closed her eyes and whispered to a woman she'd never met, "I won't let them erase you." And for the first time in weeks, she slept without nightmares. The morning of the hearing, Amara woke up at 5 a.m. and threw up twice. Not from fear, exactly, from the sheer magnitude of what was about to happen. She'd spent the last 3 days rehearsing her testimony until the words felt mechanical, meeting with Marcus's legal team, coordinating with the other scholars who'd be present in the courtroom. Everything was prepared. Everything was ready. Except her body, which was currently staging a full revolt against the idea of speaking truth in front of people who'd already decided she didn't matter. She forced down some toast, put on the same borrowed blazer, and caught the early bus downtown. The courthouse looked different this time. Bigger, more imposing, like a structure designed specifically to make people like her feel small. Marcus was already there when she arrived, standing outside the courtroom doors with his legal team. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, But when he saw her, his expression softened. "Ready?" he asked. "Not even a little bit," Amara admitted. "Good. Means you're honest." He glanced toward the courtroom doors. "They're going to come at you hard. Diane's brother hired a new lawyer specifically to discredit the scholars. They're going to try to make you look coached, opportunistic, like you're just saying what we paid you to say." "I know. And you're still doing this." Amara took a breath. "Someone once told me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding your purpose matters more." Marcus smiled. Really smiled, for the first time since she'd known him. "She would have liked you." The courtroom filled quickly. More cameras this time, more journalists. The story had grown beyond a simple estate dispute. It had become a narrative about wealth and access, about who gets to decide what help looks like, about whether people like Amara deserved investment or pity or nothing at all. The judge entered. Everyone stood, and then it began. Marcus's lead attorney went first, outlining the foundation's structure, its impact metrics, its rigorous application process. It was thorough, professional, completely impersonal.
Then Diane's sibling's new lawyer stood up, and Amara felt her stomach clench. The man was younger than the previous one, sharper, with the kind of smile that looked friendly until you realized it was all teeth. "Your Honor," he began, "the defense wants to paint a picture of noble charity, of lives transformed. But let's examine what's really happening here. The Wallace Foundation isn't an objective, merit-based institution. It's a vehicle for social engineering, for promoting a specific narrative about who deserves help and why. And the students they've paraded before this court aren't independent voices. They're carefully selected testimonials designed to tug at heartstrings while ignoring the fundamental question: why should Diane Wallace's money go to strangers instead of her own family?" He turned, gesturing toward where Amara sat with the other scholars. "Take Miss Jackson, for example. A compelling story, no doubt. But is she the best use of resources? Is she the most qualified? Or is she simply the most convenient narrative to support the Foundation's agenda?" Amara felt 20 pairs of eyes land on her. Her face burned. Her hands clenched into fists under the table. The lawyer continued, pulling up documents on a screen. "According to our research, Miss Jackson's academic record is adequate, not exceptional. Her test scores are average. Her high school didn't even offer AP classes. By any objective measure, there were more qualified candidates. So why her? Unless, of course, the foundation isn't actually about merit. It's about optics." Marcus's attorney objected. The judge sustained it, but the damage was done. Amara could feel the doubt creeping into the room like smoke. When it was finally her turn to take the stand, Amara's legs felt like water. She walked to the witness box, placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, and sat down. Marcus's attorney approached gently. "Miss Jackson, can you tell the court about your experience with the Wallace Foundation?" Amara's mouth was dry. She took a sip of water, then began. "I grew up in a neighborhood where college wasn't really discussed. It wasn't that people didn't want it, it's that it felt impossible, like something that happened to other people's kids. My mom worked 2 jobs my entire childhood just to keep us stable. I worked too, starting when I was 14. And I was smart. I knew I was smart. But smart doesn't matter when you can't afford application fees or test prep or the time to actually focus on school instead of survival." She looked at the judge, then at the jury, then at Marcus. "When I got the Wallace Foundation scholarship, it wasn't just money. It was someone saying, 'You're worth investing in.' Not because I had perfect scores. I didn't. Not because I came from the right school. I didn't. But because someone saw potential in me that the system had already decided didn't exist. That's what the foundation does. It looks at who people can become, not just who they are on paper." The opposing lawyer stood for cross-examination, that same sharp smile in place. "Miss Jackson, you said you work multiple jobs. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And you're still enrolled full-time?" "Yes." "That must be exhausting. Do you ever feel like you're in over your head?
Like maybe college isn't the right path for everyone. Amara saw the trap. I feel exhausted because the system makes it unnecessarily hard for people like me. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't be here. It means the system should change. Spoken like someone who's been coached very well. He smiled. Tell me, how much is Mr. Wallace paying you to testify today? The courtroom erupted. Marcus's attorney objected loudly. The judge slammed her gavel. But the lawyer pressed on. Isn't it true that you've received significant financial support from Mr. Wallace's team in the past 2 weeks? Travel expenses, missed work compensation, even legal consultation fees? That's not yes or no, Miss Jackson. Did you receive money from Mr. Wallace? Yes, but no further questions. He sat down, looking satisfied, and Amara felt everything crumbling. The way he'd twisted it made it look like I was bought, like my testimony was transactional. It was brilliant and cruel and exactly what I should have expected. The judge called for a short recess. Amara stumbled out of the courtroom, barely made it to the hallway before her vision started to blur. Too many eyes, too much noise, too much pressure. That's when it happened. Her knees buckled. The world tilted. She heard someone shout her name, felt hands catching her before she hit the marble floor. Everything went dark for a moment, then rushed back in fragments. Fluorescent lights, concerned faces, someone calling for a medic.
She tried to sit up, but a paramedic gently pushed her back down. Stay still. You're okay. Just breathe. I need to. Amara gasped. I need to go back in there. I need to finish. You need to breathe, the paramedic said firmly. Through the crowd of people, Amara saw Marcus push through. He dropped to his knees beside her, his face tight with worry. I'm sorry, Amara whispered. I ruined it. You didn't ruin anything, Marcus said fiercely. You stood up there and told the truth. That's all that mattered. But they made me look like… I don't care what they made you look like. Marcus's voice was low, intense. You know what you are? You know what Diane saw in students like you? You're proof that the world is wrong about who deserves a chance. You're proof that investing in people isn't charity, it's justice, and no amount of legal manipulation changes that. Amara felt tears streaming down her face. I don't know if I can go back in there. Then don't, Marcus said. You've already done more than anyone had the right to ask. If you need to walk away, walk away. Amara closed her eyes, her mother's words echoing in her head. The moment you stand up and take the space you deserve, that's when you become dangerous. She opened her eyes. Help me up. Marcus hesitated. Amara, help me up. He did, slowly, carefully, the paramedic protesting, but ultimately allowing it. Amara steadied herself, straightened her blazer, wiped her eyes, and then she walked back into that courtroom with her head high. The judge looked surprised to see her. Miss Jackson, are you sure you're able to continue? Yes, Your Honor. Very well. Does the defense have any further questions? The lawyer stood, clearly ready to strike again, but before he could speak, Amara did something no one expected. She asked the judge, May I make a statement? The judge frowned. That's unusual. I know, but I need to say something, not as a witness, as a person. The judge considered, then nodded. Proceed. Amara turned to face the entire courtroom. I'm not here because Mr. Wallace paid me. I'm here because a woman I never met believed I was worth saving, and she was right. Not because I'm perfect, I'm not. Not because I have perfect grades or test scores or the right background, but because I'm a human being who deserved a chance. That's what the Wallace Foundation does. It gives chances to people the world has already given up on. And if you destroy it, you're not just taking money from a billionaire's estate. You're taking futures from people who are fighting every single day to prove they matter. So go ahead, rule against us, but know that every scholarship you eliminate, every student you deny, that's on you. That's your legacy, not Diane's. She sat down. The courtroom was silent. And then Marcus Wallace stood up. Your Honor, may I also make a statement? The judge nodded slowly. Marcus turned to face Diane's siblings, who sat in the front row looking furious and uncomfortable. My wife spent her entire life trying to give people what she never had,
someone who believed in them. She built this foundation with her own money, her own vision, her own hands. And I will not let you erase that. Not for greed, not for pride, not for any reason. He turned back to the judge. If this court rules that blood matters more than purpose, that family entitlement matters more than community investment, then we'll appeal. And we'll keep appealing. Because some things are worth fighting for. Some legacies are worth protecting. And my wife's is one of them. He looked at Amara. And she's not alone anymore. The silence that followed felt like the world holding its breath. The judge didn't rule that day. She said she needed time to review all testimony, to consider the evidence, to weigh the competing claims. She gave both sides 2 weeks to submit final briefs. Then she dismissed the court, and everyone filed out into the gray afternoon, uncertain and exhausted. Amara didn't remember much of the next few hours. There were reporters shouting questions she didn't answer. There was Marcus's legal team debriefing in a conference room while she sat in a chair by the window, staring at nothing. There was a car ride back to campus that she barely registered. When she finally made it back to her dorm room, she collapsed on her bed and slept for 14 hours straight.
She woke up to her phone exploding with notifications again, but this time they were different. Someone had recorded her final statement in the courtroom, posted it online, and it was spreading. Not just the trolls and critics this time, real people, students, teachers, parents, people who understood what it meant to fight for a future that everyone else said you didn't deserve. The comments rolled in. This is what courage looks like. I'm a Wallace Scholar too. Thank you for speaking for all of us. I've never seen someone stand up like that. This girl is going to change the world. Amara read them through tears, her chest tight with something between grief and hope. She didn't feel like someone who was going to change the world. She felt like someone who'd barely survived a battle she didn't ask to fight. But maybe that was the point. Maybe changing the world didn't look like strength and confidence and having all the answers. Maybe it looked like showing up scared and doing it anyway. The 2 weeks passed in a blur. Marcus's legal team submitted their final brief, a comprehensive document that included testimony from 50 Wallace scholars, data on graduation rates and career outcomes, and a detailed accounting of every dollar the foundation had spent and every life it had touched. Diane's siblings submitted their brief too, arguing that blood relatives had a moral and legal right to inherit wealth, that foundations were tax shelters for the rich, that the whole thing was a vanity project dressed up as charity. And then everyone waited. Amara tried to go back to normal life. Classes, work shifts, studying for finals. But normal felt impossible now. She'd been seen too clearly, exposed too fully. There was no going back to being invisible. On a cold morning in early November, the judge released her ruling. Marcus called Amara at 7 a.m. "Can you come to the courthouse?" "What happened?" "Just come." She made it there in 40 minutes, her heart racing the entire way. Marcus was waiting outside with his legal team, and when she saw his face, she couldn't read it. "Tell me," she demanded. Marcus handed her a printed copy of the ruling. "Read it yourself." Amara's hands shook as she scanned the pages. Legal language she only half understood, references to charitable trusts and estate law and testamentary intent. And then, buried in the middle of page 12, the court finds that Diane Wallace's foundation serves a legitimate charitable purpose and that her intent to fund educational opportunities for underserved students is clearly documented and legally sound. The objections raised by the plaintiffs, while understandable from a familial perspective, do not outweigh the foundation's demonstrated impact or the testator's explicit wishes. The foundation will remain intact and fully funded as originally established. Amara looked up at Marcus, barely able to breathe. "We won? We won!" She didn't remember starting to cry, but suddenly she was sobbing, and Marcus was hugging her, and his legal team was celebrating, and everything she'd carried for the past month came pouring out in a flood of relief and unbelief and overwhelming gratitude. "She would have been so proud of you," Marcus said quietly, "of all of you." The news spread fast.
Within hours, the ruling was trending online. The Wallace Foundation announced it would not only continue operating, but would be expanding 20 additional scholarships per year, a new mentorship program, and a legal defense fund for students who face barriers to education. Amara did interviews with news outlets who'd previously called her a liar. She spoke at a press conference alongside the other scholars, and she watched as public opinion shifted from skepticism to support, as people began to understand what the foundation really represented. But the moment that mattered came 3 weeks later. Amara was leaving her constitutional law class when someone called her name. She turned to see an older Black woman standing in the hallway, tears in her eyes. "I just wanted to thank you," the woman said. "My daughter applied for a Wallace scholarship this year. She didn't think she had a chance. Her grades aren't perfect, and we don't have money for test prep. But she saw your testimony. She saw you standing up there saying that she deserves a chance anyway. And she submitted her application. We just found out yesterday she got it." The woman pulled Amara into a hug, and Amara felt something inside her shift. This was what it meant. Not the courtroom drama or the media attention or even the legal victory. This. One girl getting a chance she wouldn't have had otherwise. One future that might not have existed.
That night, Amara sat in her dorm room and wrote a letter. Not to Marcus, though she'd thanked him 100 times. Not to the foundation or the judge or anyone involved in the case. She wrote to Diane Wallace. "Dear Mrs. Wallace, I never met you, but I know you. I know you because I felt your belief in me every day since I got that scholarship letter. I know you because I've seen the foundation you built and the lives it's touched. I know you because your husband fought for your legacy like it was the most important thing in the world, because it is. I don't know if you can hear this, wherever you are, but I want you to know that what you built isn't gone. It's growing. It's living. It's changing the world one student at a time. And I promise you, I swear to you, I will spend the rest of my life making sure people like me get the chances you fought so hard to give us. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Thank you for believing in futures that everyone else gave up on. Thank you for proving that investing in people isn't charity, it's justice. I won't let them erase you. None of us will. With gratitude and determination, Amara Jackson." She printed the letter, put it in an envelope, and the next day, she went to the Wallace Foundation Community Center. Marcus was there, as he often was now, working with students, keeping his wife's dream alive. "I wrote something," Amara said, handing him the envelope, "for Diane. I know she can't read it, but—" "She can," Marcus said softly. "Maybe not in the way we'd like, but she can." He opened the envelope, read the letter slowly, and when he looked up, his eyes were wet. "Can I show you something?" he asked. He led Amara to the small office where Diane used to work, now preserved exactly as she'd left it. On the desk was a stack of folders, scholarship applications from the year Diane died. And on top of that stack was Amara's application, with a handwritten note in the margin. This one. Something special here. Approve immediately. Amara's breath caught. She chose me herself? She chose all of you. Every single scholar. She read every application, every essay, every letter. And when she found students like you, students who'd survived things they shouldn't have had to survive, who were fighting for futures everyone else said were impossible, she moved heaven and earth to make sure you got your shot. Amara traced her fingers over Diane's handwriting, feeling the connection across time and death and everything that tried to keep them apart. "I'm gonna be a lawyer. A good one. The kind who fights for people who can't fight for themselves. And when I graduate, I'm gonna come back here and help run this foundation. Keep her vision alive. Make sure it never stops growing." Marcus smiled. She would have loved that. 6 months later, Amara stood in front of a crowd of incoming Wallace scholars, 40 students this year, double the usual number, and told them her story. Not the sanitized version, not the media-friendly narrative, the real one. The scared,
messy, uncertain path from that first courtroom outburst to this moment. You're not here because you're perfect. You're here because someone believed you were worth the investment. And now it's your job to prove them right. Not by being flawless, not by never struggling, but by refusing to give up, by taking the space you deserve, by becoming exactly who you were meant to be. She looked at Marcus, sitting in the front row, and he nodded. "You're not alone," Amara said, her voice strong and clear. "None of us are. Not anymore." And as the new scholars applauded, as they looked at her with hope and determination and the same fire she'd felt standing in that courtroom, Amara knew this was just the beginning. The Wallace Foundation would live on. Diane's legacy would live on. And every student who walked through those doors would carry forward the truth she'd fought so hard to prove. That investing in people isn't charity, it's justice. And justice, once awakened, doesn't stop. It grows, it spreads, it transforms. One student at a time, one future at a time, one life that refused to be erased.